Welcome to episode 125 of the Sports Geek podcast. This week I chat with Joe Gottfried about integrating partners in digital in Toronto for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who knows sports is a 24/7 business, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast. Tell me where and how you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast. I know you can listen to it on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud. Have I converted you to Pocket Casts? I'd really like to hear, what tool and how you're using it. Are you listening to it on the website? Are you listening it to a specific podcasting app? Please send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I'd love to hear how and when you're listening to it. Or send me a message on the Sports Business Slack. If you haven't joined up, go to sportsgeekhq.com. We are getting very close to 500 members and are very humbled by the response and some of the activity that's happening in there. So if you're not in there already, please drop me a line and get an invite at sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. I'd love to have you in there and talk to you in the Sports Biz Slack. If you're listening to this podcast before September 2, and it's very relevant for this actual episode with Joe, I'd love for you to vote for our South by Southwest panel that is titled Agencies Are Doomed as Sports Teams Take the Lead. Very much on point with this conversation with Joe. Joe's a really great guy who I met at SEAT Las Vegas. He works for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment and very much works in the exact role that the South by Southwest panel is looking to talk about. We've got Peter Sorkoff from the Atlanta Hawks, Jane Busman-Wise from New York FC, and Lenny Go from Tradable Bits on the panel. So if you have not yet voted, and it is before September 2 and the voting is still open, please go to sportsgeekhq.com and follow the prompts to go through to the South by Southwest panel, or simply type my name in the South by Southwest panel picker and you'll find it. I really appreciate that vote. But here is my discussion with Joe, and I hope that after listening to this, you'll want to hear more and you'll go to that South by Southwest panel picker to vote. Here is my chat with Joe Gottfried from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Very happy to welcome Joe Gottfried, Director of Global Partnerships and Digital Integration at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, to the Sports Geek podcast. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I wanted to have this conversation. We caught up in Las Vegas at SEAT, and as is the case, and sometimes when I'm at conferences like that, I catch up with people and have great conversations, and I realise, damn, I wish I had the podcast recording equipment. We had a really good conversation at In-N-Out Burger in Las Vegas, so we don't have the animal fries next to us here, but hopefully we can recreate that great conversation we had at In-N-Out Burger.
I'm looking forward to it.
So your role at the minute, and as I just said there, Director of Global Partnerships Digital Integration. First of all, tell me what that role means and what you do at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which is in charge of the Maple Leafs, the Raptors, Toronto FC, and Ticketmaster Live Nation, if I've ticked all the things, but you'll probably be able to clarify.
Right. Yeah, so specifically at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, we are an NHL team, an NBA team, an MLS team, NBA D-League team, an AHL team, an American Soccer League team, and Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So we are basically basketball, soccer, and hockey, and live music and entertainment in Toronto. So what we are, in my role in particular, is on the sales side. So I make sure that I oversee all the digital integration for all of our different salespeople. We probably have about 20 people that will sell across platforms and across the properties. And my team specifically, we set ourselves up with a structure where I've got an ownership of hockey, an ownership of basketball, an ownership of soccer or football, if you will, and then an ownership of music and entertainment as well, too. So we oversee any of the integration that our partners want to do, because that's the hottest thing these days. You know, it used to be about just a banner and a pre-roll, and now it's about a piece of content, a piece of integration. And so we'll be the conduit between our marketing department, which owns the relationship of the community managers, of the content team, of the platforms team, and we'll make sure that that we price things accordingly and don't give it away as added value, as a lot of people used to do when we were just selling rink boards and just selling LED signage, and the social integration was a throw-in. Now, really, that's almost the pillar of a lot of our different platforms and sales and partnerships. So we've grown our team from basically it was just me on the digital side about 5 years ago. Even just to take one step back, my background was broadcast sales, so they'd asked me to take a stab at selling this digital world, and we figured, you know what, let's kind of take the structure of how we had on the broadcast side of things and making sure that there was that conduit and not keeping the integrity of the brands. That was one big thing that we want to do in this line of work, is keeping the integrity of the brands, because using our social platforms, our fans expect to be spoken to and informed and not sold to. So really our job is about integrating our partners and finding their place into the game.
So, I mean, I want to just go back to that transition. So you started in the broadcast sales, selling TV, radio spots, all the traditional media. What drew you to digital? Why did why did you get the tap on the shoulder? Was it instigated by you, or was the organisation looking to better leverage digital? Take us through how you went from that side of the business to a bit more digitally focused.
Yeah, like you said, I think I was tapped on the shoulder to say, is this something that you can do? We need to have somebody that knows media. Didn't necessarily know digital at the time. There wasn't a benchmark. There wasn't something that I could read to say, this is a consistent CPM. This is how you sell this. This is how you integrate it. So we kind of had to make up our own format. But for me, what interests me is that it was growing. I saw where the business was going. It was going to a digital world, and that I could have ownership of that. And to be honest with you, there was probably about 5 of us on the broadcast side of the thing and doing the exact same thing. So I thought, you know what, this is a great way to differentiate myself. And also just keeping things fresh. I think in the broadcast world, you can only sell so many commercials or lower thirds or score bugs. This would keep me interested and be able to drive our business and really be a pioneer and create elements and create how we sell. So that's really what interested me at the time, and it continues to do so. I haven't caught up. I don't think anybody will catch up. I think you're always trying to do something new, something innovative, which is the best part about this job. Is there's nothing cookie cutter. I get to do something different every day. And with the teams that I mentioned to you before in all the different leagues, I'm obviously dealing with different rules, different fans, different regulations, which makes it very interesting and keeps it fun for myself.
So you're talking early on, when you're coming from a broadcast side of the business, which has, age-old KPIs and metrics. Don Draper was selling, broadcast back in the day. Now you move to digital, where it is like a new landscape, where it, making it up isn't quite the right term, but you had to come up with terms that were that sponsors who were still coming to the space just as green. It's not like they came to the space going, we know exactly what we want, we know exactly how to measure it. How has your broadcast background and then sort of mashing that together with what digital is, how do you come up with those, hey, this is what success is, this is what you're going to get as part of your campaign, getting things like CPM or acquisition of customers? How have you tried to merge those two worlds together to get outcomes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to start, there was a few industry, I guess you can call them regulations, where that it's a $15 CPM on a banner is okay, a $40 CPM on a pre-roll is okay. But it was really that social integration and how to price that. And luckily enough, we had brands that are very high profile, so you could put a number to it and just say that is the number. But knowing my background on the media side of things, dealing with agencies, you had to have the answer. As long as you had the answer, not just a dartboard answer, it's, okay, I'm estimating that our following is going to grow by X amount of percent. So by the end of the year, we're going to have X amount of followers, X amount of interactions. 5 years ago, it was likes and follows and that's about it. Now there's so many different ways that you can measure this, and we've grown our team. I can go into that later about how our business intelligence team has grown, but really it was about making sure you had the answer. A lot of the time you were very much educating your partners, and we still do educate our partners. A lot of partners will say, I want to do something socially, and you ask them why, and they say, I don't know, or it's because everybody else is doing it. So there aren't necessarily a lot of partners that have KPIs until the last couple of years, where it was about literally selling a product or drive to a store or testing a product, or sometimes it might even just be, I want more followers on my page. So really, you had to go in and listen. Again, nothing being cookie cutter. The old process of, we have a package of, you can sponsor the schedule page and here's how much it costs. Well, no, it's let's go in and listen to our partners first and see what their objectives are. So really, coming out of that, what we want to do is then put together a full package that is fully integrated and full 360, where what we're doing in Arena is consistent with what we're doing on social, is consistent with what we're doing on .com. So that's really what we want to make sure, is that there's consistency across the board. And that's why we've got the conduit between us and our other salespeople to make sure we know on the Raptor side of things, the ownership of preseason or ownership of training camp is already sold, so you can't go out and pitch that idea, but it is available over here, or something is available on another team. So really making sure that we communicate internally how we sell is really key on this side, and making sure we're consistent with those partners. So now our partners are more educated on how they want to measure, but still not everybody is. So again, we started off with, here's a number, and almost reverting it back to a cost per thousand. But the problem with social is hopefully your following is growing every day. And we were lucky enough, even just on the basketball side of things, saw that our Raptor fans outgrew our Maple Leaf fans, which we never thought would be possible. So making sure that you adjust on the fly on how you sell, whether that's your costing, but having those answers, you can't just have a dartboard answer. So making sure that you relate it back to a CPM or some sort of process that you can explain to your partner, because just having a number isn't going to cut it, especially when it comes down to agencies.
Yeah, and it's really important that number is custom to what their objectives are and also what their knowledge is of the space. If they're just coming at it from a TVC, type of thing, then you need to reframe all your digital numbers into that same language, so they know how many people are going to see it and things like that. And so that's part of that education process, isn't it?
That's key. You got to know your audience. If you're talking to an agency folk that knows CPMs, if it's CPC, CPA, you talk in that language. And then if it's just a marketing folk that doesn't necessarily have the media background, then you speak to it on the KPIs driving to the stores and maybe something more related to them. But making sure you have those answers to both sides, because that marketing person in Toronto will send it to their media agency to evaluate it, to break it down, to tell you that you're only worth 50% of how you calculated it. And then it's about you justifying with the price tag that you put on it. And, the agencies, they can't put a price tag on passion and what that logo means in the marketplace. Especially with us, we very much sell at Maple Leaf Sports is we want to deal with less partners and do more. You might walk into opposition arenas and see 3 car partners. Well, we don't do that. We make sure we only deal with one and do more with that partner. So it's clear in our partners' minds and in our fans' minds that our auto partner on the Leaf and Raptor side is Ford. There's no doubt who the official partner is. And that has value to it as well, too. Selling exclusivities, knowing what your property is worth in the space, to say, if I did want to go sell to 10 other advertisers in the auto category, what is that worth? And then making sure you get that money back from your official partner as well, too, because that is value. So making sure you have that in your upfront deal when you do sell that, and knowing that there is a price for exclusivity. That's key as well.
So you're sort of saying where your team sits as far as it's sort of in between traditional sponsorship and the digital team. And I often joke that I spend a fair bit of time in that space, and that I'm sometimes like a digital divorce counsellor, making sure that those two parties work. You've just given a bit of a laugh there. How because sometimes they can be pulling in opposite directions in some instances. How do you make sure that the commercial and the partners are happy and getting results, but then also the digital team is not feeling weighed down with campaigns that are mistargeted or those kind of things? How do you manage that balance?
That's a great question, and I laugh because when we first started having a digital salesperson, I think everybody downstairs in our marketing department was scared. You know, they thought that we were just going to sell everything and just logos everywhere. And I promised them I would keep the integrity of the brand. And a key part of that was structure, how we structured that. They didn't want 20 different salespeople going down to talk to the community manager to say, put my post up, or what's a piece of content I can own, because they don't know if that piece is worth $50,000 or if that's a $1 million deal, and they don't know which one has priority over the next. So making sure that there's structure on how we integrate it, and really creating a process. Process was big around here, and earning that trust of our marketing department to know that they knew what we were doing, that we weren't just going to slap logos on things, that we were going to make sure that the program worked. And really what we also started doing was including the community managers in a lot of our sales pitches, which gave clout to the process of selling, where it isn't just sales guy here that's pointing fingers and saying, this is, yeah, we can do it. Yes, we can do it. Well, right away, we have the community manager saying, no, that idea is okay. But if we shifted focus to execute like this, we would get more likes, more followers, and it would have it would resonate better with our fans. So really including them in the process, making sure that we set up a good structure and have people follow that, because we will have a lot. We had people that would go rogue and just come up with an idea and sell it and send it down to marketing, say execute. Well, no, we don't do that anymore. We got to make sure that we follow that process and structure, and then they know. And once we started getting the trust, it was about building trust with marketing. And really, sometimes we've had to say no. It's if it doesn't make sense for us, you don't want to just slap logos on things. You want to make sure it's consistent with what, like I said, what you're doing in building and what you're doing socially on .coms, and it has to be consistent. So having them in the idea, approving the idea at the forefront before the signatures on the deal, really helped out. And it was really about building that trust over the years. And now we've had that probably about 5-6 years strong. They trust us in how we sell.
And so is that process, I guess, two-way? One, commercial team having a partner that wants to do something and they've come up with some idea or campaign, or whether it be digital and social components, and they sort of come back to digital and say, hey, what do you think? But is it also, like, I work a lot more on the digital side with the digital team and the content guys, and one of the things I'm always telling them is to have a bit more of a commercial focus. If you're going to produce a really killer piece of content or a fan engagement campaign, or a specific piece of content or on a new platform, like Snapchat or something, to have that commercial focus, say, hey Joe, we've got this property, we think it's something a sponsor might like, but we haven't, it's your job to monetize it. Are they sort of almost in that, again, that old style, hey, we're pitching a new TV project, what do you guys think? Can you fill sponsors for it? Is it happening both ways now?
It is now. It wasn't at first, and I think it was that fear of slapping logos on everything and overselling things to our fans. But they realize when you do it in an organic way that actually makes sense with a product that makes sense. We had challenged them because we can only bring forth so many partners and so many ideas. We've asked them, come to us with ideas. Also, some people might think that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has budgets that allow us to do everything. Well, we can't always afford to send a community manager on the road, or the community manager wants to execute something but just doesn't have it in the budget, or something comes up in mid-year that you didn't budget for. Well, the best way to get that done is have somebody pay for that. So if they can think, oh yeah, I've got this great idea, and I think an insurance partner would really fit well in this idea, I'm going to go to my GP partners and show them how this could work. So almost have them pitch us in reverse and giving us a couple examples of how this could work. Then it makes our process easy, because we've already got buy-in from marketing, and they want to do something that's new or cool, or what's that new innovative piece that they want to do something with? How can they get that paid for? How can they get a body on the road, or that extra videographer or something like that? Making sure that they come to us. They know that that's a great way to get those things done, where before they would just get the no and shut down the idea. So really, it is about going both ways, whether it be having them in the ideation from the start or something they've thought on their own. We make sure that we welcome all forms of the process to make sure that everybody is happy with what they're doing. Because again, they're creative thinkers. They are the creative executors. It's their art piece. And how can they get more people to see it? How can they how are they able to do more? Maybe they had one podcast they wanted to do just as a one-off, but they want to make sure it's a series through the year. Getting somebody to pay for it's the best way to do it, but making sure that they know that it's a proper integration and not just, again, slapping a logo on it.
Yep. So one of the things that commercial guys are around, because they're all about sales and getting the sponsorships and hitting quotas and bringing revenue, which is their role, is that sometimes you end up with a square peg round hole, and you're trying to figure out how this product or how this service can fit in or under, in your case, multiple brands. Have you ever had an example of that where you just go, you're sort of racking your brains going, how am I going to make this work?
Yeah, it happens often, and sometimes you're right. We are about hitting quotas, but saying no is one of the most difficult things you had to do, or walk away from a pitch. Sometimes you have to do that. A great example is a couple of years ago, we're trying to work with P&G and Swiffer, and we thought, how are we going to get this dry mop into what's their place in the game? This just isn't going to work. We're sitting around a table. They're trying to really reach millennials in the GTA, Greater Toronto area, of guys that are living in condos that have their hardwood floor, their vinyl floor. That they, how are we supposed to approach these guys? And it really racked our brains. We just thought this isn't going to work. And finally, light bulb clicked off that we've got the most prestigious hardwood in Canada, being our Raptors court. How do we make sure that everything surrounding the court is related to Swiffer? So whether it be on social, the Swiffer hardwood matchup of the game, it's to player versus player idea. How do we do the upgrade courtside seats from the top of the 300 level in arena? On broadcast, how do we advertise who's on the floor, or the starting five is, that's related to the hardwood? So really bringing that together. It took some time, and we almost did walk away from that one. That ended up winning us an award with the NBA. It's an internal award, but with all the different leagues, it was voted on by all 30 teams, and we won an award with that one as an activation of the year, which was fantastic, because again, we thought about it. We thought it thoroughly. How do we make sure that in-arena matches with broadcast, matches with .com, matches with social? And it really came together, but it almost didn't. And sometimes it not coming together is okay, and it's okay to walk away from a deal rather than hurting the integrity of the brand, where somebody socially is going to call out you, or even worse, call out a product and say, why are you doing that? And getting eaten alive socially, because that happens as well too. Like, we could win the Stanley Cup in 5, and they said we should have done it in 4. Like, there's sometimes just no pleasing any of your fans. So them calling you out on a partnership, that's going to get somebody a little leery to maybe re-sign a couple years down. But if you make it work properly, it works well, your fans accept it. They didn't mind that there was a brand associated with that because it was informative. So,
yeah, that's really important, considering the fans' response to sponsor digital activations, whether they be digital and or social. So, other than the sort of keeping that the brand to heart and what the brand and the fans might think, is there any rules of thumb that you sort of push onto and outline to partners to say, these are things that we just have, these are our standards, they have to pass these, otherwise your campaign won't go through and actually will do more harm than good?
That's a great one, and it's a line that I use probably way too often, and I tell our folks that, listen, if you're going to be, okay, anybody can put up a banner, that's fine, anybody can create pre-roll, that's fine, but if you're going to integrate into our social channels or a content piece, it's got to follow one of these three, or check one of these 3 boxes, and it has to inform our fans, has to offer something to our fans, or give them a chance to win, or entertain our fans. So one of those 4. And one of our very first integration pieces was almost a rip-off from Molson Hockey Night in Canada. Well, why was it called Molson Hockey Night in Canada? Well, because it just became part of the vernacular after people started saying that. So we thought, let's get our very first content piece that goes off of our social channels every morning on a game day was at Scotiabank Game Day. It's literally written out, at Scotiabank Game Day, game tonight at 7:30 on TSN. Well, that was a good integration. That informed our partners of when the game was, where to watch it, and that it's a game day. That partnered with sponsoring the schedule page, with In Arena, making sure that the Scotiabank presence of hockey, they wanted to own hockey in Canada. So really making sure that it aligned with those three elements, that informed people and gave them something informative. That's evolved into a whole bunch of, sometimes they'll do a contest during the year. They've got the Scotia Skater where a child can have a chance to be the flag bearer on the ice. So we inform them, hey, Jimmy Smith from Toronto, Ontario is going to be tonight's Scotia Skater. Look for him on the ice at 7:30 at TSN. So integrating that into the platform as well, too. So it has evolved, but that was almost our first little test to see, okay, we hit send. Is anybody... are they going to rip us apart for including a partner into the social world? And it was okay because it informed our partners or informed our fans. So really, as long as they can inform our fans of something, offer them, give them a chance to win or entertain, it's got to check those. We're not just going to slap your logo and say, third quarter stats brought to you by. We're not going to do those sort of things anymore. We've got to make sure that it follows one of those. So
that actually leads me to another question in Facebook and its new Facebook brand guidelines that they're bringing out with the width, which, like I said at Seat, I'm not a massive fan of because effectively it opens the back door for your partners to automatically see all the stats on your post, potentially see how poorly they may be performing because they are a sponsored post. Apparently. And I'm seeing a mixed usage of it so far. I follow a lot of sports pages, and I'm seeing a lot of branded content, but not seeing many people use the width yet. Apparently, it's getting rolled out early September, is what I've been told by Facebook. That it'll start being enforced, and if it doesn't adhere to the guidelines, it will effectively be hidden unless you put the width on. For mine, I think, just this is more of an opinion piece than anything else, is that I think sports has been caught up in, the influencer market and them selling Facebook posts, whereas sports has been doing this type of sponsorship forever and a day. But it's going to make it, it's going to make it tough, depending on how tough or loose the algorithm is to say you must have a width on everything. And then how do you mitigate that risk of, hang on, Joe, I thought I was going to get this many reach on the Leafs page, and then sponsors just, not understanding the concept, not understanding that it's like you said, it's integration. It's not just social. There's stuff happening on the site, and there's some stuff happening in stadium, and them just taking some of their budget and boosting those posts because they think that's what they need. Like, how are you guys sort of looking at that, and what's your take on it?
Well, I don't know if I'm a fan of it as well, to be completely honest with you. I think it's just a way of, eventually they're probably going to want to eat our lunch and ask us for a certain share of the sponsorship dollar, I'm sure, which this essentially is. But we started looking at this last year anyway, just with the change of algorithms last year, specifically on Facebook, and knowing that it wasn't going to reach 100% of our followers. We thought, you know what, let's start making sure that partners put some dollars behind posts and to promote them. And so what we're really doing now is ensuring that anybody that has a integrated content piece, it has to be a content piece. We wouldn't do that on that simple Scotiabank game day piece, but if it's a video piece or something consistent, we're basically taking about 5 to 10% of the social budget that we've pitched and ask them to spend that to boost posts as well too, just to ensure that we're getting the maximum followers and reach that we can. And again, it's an opportunity to send this message outside of our 4 digital walls and just to our fans and reach possibly some future fans of theirs or fans of the product or people that wouldn't necessarily see those posts. So we've included that now in part of our process, that if there is a specific content piece, that there is paid media as part of that, because again, that's going to be dollars that leave our books. So not doing that after the fact when, say, you sell a $100,000 sponsorship and like, oh, it's really not doing well. Let's take $10K and put it towards paid media. Well, what we're doing is saying, here's your $10,000 sponsorship, but we're asking for 110. Making sure that we ask for those dollars ahead of time and not after, because it looks like you failed and you haven't done your job. But and just to take one step back, when you're talking about numbers, we don't necessarily give a guaranteed reach or engagement level to our partners as of yet. We're not there. We basically have a cost per execution, and we do and are working on some new revenue models with our business intelligence team. But there's just too many variables in sports. Did we win last night? Did we lose? Something major? Was there a major trade? There's too many variables where people have asked, even, what's my contest going to do compared to another contest? Well, what are you giving away? Are you giving away a trip to fly anywhere in North America, or are you just giving away a jersey? That's a big factor, even though people will jump even just at a jersey in our market. It's really, there's too many variables. So we try to give them a like-minded execution that has happened and give them some sort of idea, but not a guaranteed impression. We can guarantee X amount of pre-roll or X amount of banners on a site, but for our digital and social integration pieces, we don't necessarily do that as of yet. So it's still going to be a learning, even a month, 2, 3, 4 months, even a full season. We're going to have to see how things perform for us and how they change. And was 5 to 10% of that social budget enough to boost posts? I'm not sure, but we'll see. It's going to be a work in progress.
But the thing is, I think it also comes down to back to that piece that you were doing, early on. It's back to that education piece, because, I agree. More and more teams now putting paid behind paid efforts. So if you've got a paid effort and a sponsorship piece is a paid effort, a ticketing piece is a paid effort. So you've got to make sure you hit those people. But your education piece is, well, you're not really interested in hitting 1 million Raptors fans. You're interested in hitting the 300,000 Raptors fans that are in your demographic, that are in the Greater Toronto area, that might buy or purchase your product. So that's where you're not selling the look at the reach, look at all that. You're selling the total campaign, which is, this is what happened in stadium, this is what happened via EDM, this is what happened on the site, and this is the traffic we drove, and this is the store traffic. So if you put all your eggs in one basket and a sponsor's sitting there going, how did my Facebook post go, then you are going to be, it's not going to work. But if it's completely integrated, and I think that's going to be the strong debate, I think it's going to be the way with Facebook, is if you're saying, well, no, they haven't paid for this Facebook post, that's just one piece of a really big equation. We're just not selling a post. And so I think that's where there might be some pushing back, but yeah, I think it is just a means for them to know that it is a sponsored post, that they want revenue behind it. Then the question is, if you put revenue behind it, do we need to say that it's got the width because we've played by the rules? So,
and was it quality or quantity? Again, currency is changing year over year on how we sell things and what's value to our partners. Again, back in the day, a like or a follow was good enough. Now it's about what was the engagement and how long did they spend on a specific page, or how long did they qualify for an engagement, spending 2 to 3 seconds on your post. Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I see that sponsored ad, I tend to just whisk right by it, and I hope that doesn't happen, because I want to make sure, like you said, we get those quality views, not necessarily billions upon billions of views that where people were just scrolling by and hit the minimum requirement for an engagement when really they weren't even looking at the post. So it's the ROI will have to do a lot of different reports afterwards to see how things are doing. Whether do we put most of the money behind Facebook and forget about Twitter and Instagram, or do you go 33% each and split your budgets there? We're going to have to do a lot of testing, and I think it'll be, again, with all those different variables, taking the variables into mind. Was it a contest? Was it a content piece? Was it a content piece with a player versus not with a player, versus an alumni versus just, there's going to be so many different variables that we're going to have to evaluate on and then come up with our own standard, if we will.
And I think the other piece you just said there, the ad skipping and the ad blocking, conversation that's happening at the moment, both with either product like ad blocker and trying to stop ads, but then you've also got, I've got I was speaking to my daughter the other day, and she knows what's an ad. She sees the sponsored tag, and she just flicks by it. And if she sees an ad in Instagram, she just flicks by it. They're savvy enough to know. And I think the time of not being tricked or not knowing that it's an ad, that's relatively going. In the same way that we know when there's an ad on TV, we know when there's an ad on the radio, and we can change the channel. That is the behaviour. So it becomes more important that integration piece you were talking about before, that the fan is so embedded into the piece of content that weaves into a campaign, that weaves into a stadium activation, that they just go, yeah, I really love that whole piece, what was delivered, and Scotiabank, because they're the branding partner, they get all the love because of it. So it does become really the bar on the content side, and what you deliver is just getting set higher and higher if you're going to put a partner to it.
Absolutely, it's got to be relevant, and I hope that if we keep doing what we do and doing it well, that even though if it is a sponsored ad, people will recognize, okay, that's worth my time, and it's worth me clicking, or it's worth me reading, or worth me following. So it's going to be, a couple months in, we'll see how well it's doing, but we're going to continue to keep doing what we're doing. But again, knowing the way that movement is going, that we park some dollars ahead of time to ensure that there's still the maximum amount of eyeballs on the pieces that we create.
Yeah, I think that's just a must. It's not, you're not mitigating risk, but you're just getting closer to ensuring success. And again, if you're telling
back to your point about education, you have to educate your partners that, listen, that $10,000, we're not making money off of that. That literally is going out of our pocket to ensure that this program works properly. That's how this platform works, and it has to be done. And I think there's more people, like you said, it's a must. That's what I'm saying. It's a must. If there's consistency around the marketplace, it'll be taken for gospel, and that'll be part of the currency now.
And you've already spoken about it, and it just seems like it is second nature. But how do you get the traditional in stadium and the boards and things happening in stadium and connect that with digital? Is that just when you've got a partner, you're sort of ticking the box of all the different opportunities they've got with either one team or across all of the teams, and you're just saying, if you've got stadium, you definitely need digital to support that, and you need social to support those options? Is that pretty much it's just trying to get that mix across all the assets that you have?
Yeah, I think it's about having the right people at the table to making sure that we can execute properly. Maybe not everything belongs everywhere, but usually having that consistency across the board will measure success down the road, to making sure that you get those season seat holders on your subscriber list, to making sure that everybody in building sees that message of that contest or that content piece. So making sure that, again, back to the education piece, that's what we realize, that's what works for our fans in this marketplace. So it almost is a must. But internally, making sure we have all the right stakeholders, from the initial salesperson setting up their meeting, coming back with, here's the info I've gathered. So now I know I need my digital specialist. I know I need my in-arena specialist. I know I need my game presentation person there, because they're going to speak to how we're going to educate our fans during this 30-second timeout that they're going to own, or a specific promotion night, and making sure that everybody's on board right from the start. Because again, somebody might have a better idea on how they can execute their LED signage based on what that promotion's supposed to be. Or, we've got a new projection screen on the ice in the court. This is a really cool way that you can inform your fans of your messaging. So right away, making sure that initial salesperson has everybody, all the key stakeholders at the table, coming up with those ideas and how it works in their space. And
the last one was, you said early on, like sponsors early on were asking for likes and follows. That's obviously changing. They're seeing the market move and what they want. What are sponsors asking for the most these days? Is there a hot item in your pitch deck that they're saying, Joe, we want more of that? Can you get us more of that?
Yeah, it's integrated content. It's again not just slapping a logo on a piece, but it's how can we organically find our place in the game and it not be BS to your fans. It's an example would be Sport Check, which is a sporting goods realtor in Canada, and their tagline was "Your better starts here." So we thought, okay, you know what? How does that work into our game? So for the Toronto Maple Leafs side of things, they're going to sponsor training camp. They're going to sponsor anytime there's player movement, somebody coming from the minor leagues to the major leagues. So that's some consistency through the year. Your better starts here. It's about training in the off season or towards free agency in July. They sponsor all those posts surrounding any movement around there. So really making sure that you listen and find their place in the game, but really they wanted sponsored content pieces. So through training camp, we know we've got lots of that's where, okay, it's September. People want to see hockey again, so they want to see the new kids on the ice. We're pushing out those content pieces through the year when they want to be informed about when a player gets traded or a player comes from the minors to the majors. There's a content piece. So having those specific content pieces through the year or planned out, sometimes it might just be they want to be active during October, and how can you find their place there? It really content, video is the major thing everybody wants, but also having consistency through the year, which is hard for some people, and everybody can do their plays of the day or plays of the week or plays of the month, but really it's about finding those other places that can be consistent. And it's about content, and video is what all of our partners are asking for right now.
Yeah, and that is a trend the world over. If you get a good content team in place and then they start having that commercial focus, they can say, hey, we're now going to do this special 3-minute web series, profiling the players in training camp, and you can go, great, I know I've got, that's it, I want more of that. And it makes it far easier for you to go back to partners and say, Sport Check or whoever, we've now got this piece, who wants it? And effectively you can create a bidding war amongst your own partners if you're just getting this really high level of quality content coming down the pipeline that has the opportunity to be commercialised, again, in an integrated manner, because it works quite well.
That's right. And, sometimes you might have come up with an idea and the deal falls through and doesn't go for whatever reason. Or, again, you might have had to say no. You've got that funnel of ideas already ready to go that, your marketing team wants to execute or can execute. How can you, refurbish that for somebody else in an organic way? Again, not just slapping a logo on. It might be a year down the road that you realize, hey, that might work for this new pitch. Let's do it. And making sure that it, again, keeps the integrity of the brands. And a lot of people are coming to us, again, I want to be on social. But we've kind of set a guideline of not everybody belongs there. Your brand isn't big enough or your partnership isn't big enough. You have to hit a certain threshold to be on those channels with us. But a lot of people, I think that it's infinite, but it really isn't, because it's going to just become social spam eventually. So making sure the stuff that we do is extraordinary, making sure that it fits, and that it works for them and us. It works for both sides.
Yeah, I think that is vital, like limiting the amount of posts and sort of keeping them at a premium, because the easiest thing is yes, you can always add 20 more tweets or 20 more Facebook posts or 20 more Instagram posts, but automatically, if everyone's in that, if everyone can get access to that, then the value that you're pushing goes down. And you're right, you end up in that social spam space, which is somewhere you don't want to be. You don't want your fans tuning out if you're not getting the mix right.
And don't forget, they still have to do their job and report on the team. That's what the platforms started off as. So they still have to do their job, let alone our integration job, right?
Exactly. Well, I'm going to wrap up with the Sports Geek Fast 5. What was the first sports event you ever attended?
With my dad, Toronto Maple Leafs, which is now where I work with. I'm honored to work here after all this time. But my dad at Maple Leaf Gardens, which was our original stadium we had. I remember walking through and being squished with 15,000, 16,000 people after the game would end, trying to hold his hand and not lose him. And it was there was no easy way out of that building. It was probably a definite fire hazard at the time. But being 5, 6 years old, that was just I still remember the smell and the look of the place. It was something else. Just first ever, and I still love going to games with my father. Terrific.
And food at sports events, that's changed over the years. Do you have a favourite food at a sports event?
I know it's changed, and I like when I go to opposition stadiums and trying something new, but I still like going to the classic hot dog, because I think you can almost gauge what sort of experience you're going to have based on that hot dog. And I think there's the trigger memories as well, too, from when you were a kid. So definitely a hot dog.
Very good, very good. And what's the first app you open in the morning?
And it's more on a personal basis. Instagram. I just want to see whether, what my friends got up to the night before, or the teams, or it used to be Twitter, but more recently, I'm more of an Instagram kind of person.
So, in Instagram, are you going to the feed, or are you looking at the Instagram stories?
A little bit of both, and definitely more feed to start off the morning, and then I'll get on the train and get into the stories because I've got about an hour train ride into Toronto. So I've got time to check out almost all the different platforms, but I start with Instagram feed and then stories.
Oh, terrific. Is there anybody you should that the Sports Geek podcast listeners should either follow or read or catch up with in the internet? Is there someone that is your go-to source?
You know what? I might even take a different angle in this one, and I think we can all say, the Roto Worlds and the sports business journals, and try to name something smart. But I think a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to the team side of things, is following obviously your teams, your competitors, following your leagues, following your partners, and following your partners' competitors. See what they're doing in the space. I think a lot of people fail to know what their partners do or already do. So if it would just be 2 seconds of advice is making sure that you follow what your partners and your competitors to your partners do, just to making sure that they're going to be ahead of them.
Yeah, that's a really great tip, because there's nothing better, especially when you're in those pitch meetings and you're able to say, oh, we're going to do this, unlike your competitor that did this, and this is why it didn't work. That just gives you so much kudos to be able to bring that up in one of those meetings.
And sometimes you might be at an agency that represents one of your partners, and you forward that piece already in advance just to educate them, pass along the knowledge to make sure that they look smart in front of their clients as well, too. So I think it's, and of course there's always the dailies in your local dailies. And the one thing is recently I've only been starting to do this more and more, is checking the international teams, your international footy teams in different rugby leagues, because, it might not be relative to your sport, but the execution that they've done is something completely off the wall, or there's a new technology coming out of Ireland, or there's something coming out of Australia that I want to know about, because I want to be the first that does something here in Canada specifically, or first in the NHL, or first in the NBA. So I think making sure you look outside of your own four local walls, you have to do that to make sure you're educated.
Yeah, I think that's also important, both from I agree with the global point of view, but then also, in other industries, because you're in, with working with Ticketmaster Live Nation, you get to see what all the concerts and what musicians are doing. There's stuff that's happening in, I guess, adjacent industries in the entertainment space that sports can look at and go, what's our tweak? One of the phrases we like to use is steal with pride. Steal it, take it, twist it, make it your own. It's then your own because it's for your fans. But there's plenty of better. Exactly. It's all because it all comes down to execution. Yeah. Ideas are plentiful. It all comes down to execution in the end. What's your social media MVP? We don't award any co-MVPs here. You have to pick one.
So I can't duck out. I can't duck out using all three in different ways.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know what? I've got to give kudos back again to Instagram and basically stealing Snapchat's thunder. I think they already had a good product that I thought was going to take a lot away from Twitter and Facebook, which they have. And now they've taken away from Snapchat specifically as well, too. So I think they're on the track to growing faster and adapting to what millennials wanted, what their fans wanted. I think they've done a great job with not just offering one product. Now they have two really killer products within one app. And they continue to grow. So I'm going to have to throw it over to Instagram without bowing out to saying all three.
Well, very good. That's a very considered response, and it is interesting seeing people's differing reactions to, I guess, Instagram stories. You have the young kids who are diehard Snapchats and are really angry that Instagram has stolen it. But majority of people that are on Instagram are going, "Oh, this is a cool feature," and don't know about Snapchat. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they stay all in, and that sort of, because there's two apps in one app. Whether that continues to grow, or potentially it might actually get people to use Snapchat to go, oh, I now understand these disappearing messages. I might give it a go. So still to play out. Where can people find you on the internet, what's the best way? Where can they find you on Twitter and anything like that?
They can find me on Twitter at Joe Gottfried. Gottfried is spelled Gottfried. LinkedIn, again, my profile, Joe Gottfried. Instagram is Joe Gottfried, so I'm consistent with my platforms. I didn't have too common of a name, so easy to find. And MLSE.com is our company website, but you can also check out Raptors.com, MapleLeafs.com, TorontoFC.ca, Marlies.ca, so lots of different products to push there as well, too.
Well, this will be one of the most link-laden show notes with the amount of teams and properties that you are connected with. But they can find all those links in the show notes. Thank you very much. Even though we did not have Animal Fries with us, I think we did a pretty good job of replicating that conversation. So that's pretty much what a lunch conversation is like when I'm talking to people. And this time we caught it on a podcast. So thank you very much, Joe.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Joe Gottfried from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. A really interesting guy in a really interesting role. I do think there'll be more and more people in roles very similar to Joe in many sports organisations. It's definitely a growing and a new role in many sports organisations. Someone that can straddle both commercial and digital and sponsorship. It's a really unique role, but it is a way for digital teams to grow their revenue. So, I really enjoyed the chat with Joe, both in the In-N-Out Burger and then again on the podcast. Send him a tweet at Joe Gottfried, as he said on the podcast. Tell him that you listened and reach out to him and show your appreciation either via Twitter or connect with him on LinkedIn. It really leads me into, I guess, a discussion of stuff that I'm doing more and more these days, whether it is on the digital side of things or on the commercial side of things. So if you are interested in, rolling out a solution and getting your processes up to speed to better work with commercial and sponsorship teams, please send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or just book in for a phone call. I'm happy to have a phone call with anybody who's listening to the podcast. So if you go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call, book in. Happy to have a chat about how potentially I can help you. Sort of comes in one of either four ways at the moment. This is sort of where I'm working at the minute. If it's on the digital side of things, I can walk through your digital assets, see if there's any, evaluate what you're doing, and assess any campaign opportunities, both for a campaign point of view and also some branded content opportunities. And that sort of leads into a digital health check type of piece of work. On the commercial side, and sort of working in the sort of similar space that Joe was talking about, it's in that reviewed commercial and digital inventory and how they're going about selling digital and what things can be upgraded. Moving away from no more social posts being posted, especially with the new Facebook brand guidelines, but more social campaigns. And so that more leads into a commercial digital inventory review and how you're going about selling all your opportunities in digital. Then from a sponsor side of things, you can also do a review on how you're going about and helping you better pitch to specific sponsors. And so that can either be helping you review your current pitch deck and what you're pushing out to just sponsors in general, or more specifically, if you think you've got a really big opportunity in the digital space and you want to make sure that pitch and that proposal is right on the money. I also sort of help review and develop sponsorship proposals that have a really strong digital element. So there's that side of thing. And then the last one is from the data side of things. What does your data position look like? How can you use your data to, one, secure more tickets, and then also secure more sponsors, I should say, and then the other one is to sell more tickets. So one, looking at your data position right now, and then how you can go about growing that. So there's sort of the four ways that I'm currently helping teams. If you're interested in that kind of thing and you think I can help you or your team, either in a short or a long-term capacity, as I said earlier, drop me a line, either Sean@sportsgeekhq, or even just book in straight away for a phone call, sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. And as I said, as I'm wrapping up this episode, if you are listening to this before September 2, and you've just downloaded it and you're one of these people that listen to it straight away, first of all, thank you very much. It means you're listening to it in the first day or two after this has been released. And you may have already voted. If you have, thank you very much. But you can go to sportsgeekhq.com, South by Southwest panel picker, or just go to the Sports Geek website and you'll see a link to it to vote up my panel. And it's the same offer that I put up for any iTunes reviews. If you vote up my panel or leave an iTunes review, I will buy you a beer next time I see you, or a wine, or whatever your drink of fancy is. So just send me a tweet. Tell me that you have shared or voted up the panel, and I'll add your name to my virtual bar tab. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook.com/SportsGeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at SportsGeekHQ.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to SportsGeekHQ.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.